Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mistake by the Mike podcast. This is show number 2. I'm your host, Jeff Rich. We talk about various things on this show. Last week, our first episode featured thoughts on the Cleveland Browns and their game against the Baltimore Ravens that did not go well for the Browns. I'm here in Arizona, where the Cardinals are playing particularly well, perhaps even well enough to host the Super Bowl in their own stadium, which is going to happen, but whether the Cardinals are that team or not is yet to be determined. I don't think the Browns are going to be that team, but they're going to look to bounce back from that loss next week against the Tennessee Titans. In any event, not going to talk a lot of NFL football. Not going to talk any more NFL football, as a matter of fact, today. We're going to focus on Major League Baseball, which saw its season come to its regular season anyway come to an end after 162 games. Nobody needed a 163rd game, so congratulations to the Baltimore Orioles, the Detroit Tigers, the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, the Washington Nationals, the St. Louis Cardinals, the Los Angeles Dodgers for all winning their division. We're going to have a couple of wild card games to determine who else gets into the tournament. In the American League, you have the Royals, who finished second in the American League Central, and the Oakland Athletics, who hung on and managed to save themselves from not having to play a 163rd game or not having any more games to play, period, with a win on Sunday. They staved off the Seattle Mariners in their own division, and the Indians were eliminated on Friday night. Over in the National League, it was a little more clear-cut. Last race was the National League Central Division, which went to the Cardinals, but Pittsburgh Pirates gave them a pretty good fight. They ended up with their second, not only their second straight winning season, which was a first and a second for the first time since the early '90s, when Barry Bonds, Bobby Bonilla, and Andy Van Slyke ran that outfield at Three River Stadium. But they're, speaking of Bonds, they're going to be playing his other team, the San Francisco Giants, in the wild card round. So. Couple of good wild card matchups, some good overall playoff matchups. Easy to believe that the 10 teams that are in the postseason were probably baseball's 10 best teams throughout the regular season. One of the odd men out was the Cleveland Indians, who finished 85-77, good for third place in the American League Central Division, and quite frankly, a good season despite everything that happened to them. Everything including their opening day starter not showing up for the year. Going 4-6 through, I believe it was 29 games with the Indians. That would be Justin Masterson. Nick Swisher, the big free agent pickup before the 2013 season, not a big contributor either. Not big contributions all around the diamond. One of the exceptions, a few exceptions. Michael Brantley, the player to be named later in the CC Sabathia trade back in 2008. Had a heck of a season, 200 hits. That was good for second in the American League, behind Jose Altuve, who had a great season for the Astros, but he had to play for the Astros, so take that with a grain of salt. On the pitching side, I thought that while they didn't get a lot of performance out of their quote unquote ace, they didn't particularly miss Ubaldo Jimenez and Scott Kazmir. Scott Kazmir had a decent season with the A's. Jimenez took $50 million from the Orioles, and I'm guessing he's going to be the same pitcher that we saw in Cleveland since acquiring him at the deadline in 2011, right up until it came to be walk year time in August of 2013. So, I know that a lot of people get on this team about being cheap, but you got to be savvy when you don't have a lot of money. And I think that letting Kazmir walk, letting Jimenez walk, ultimately good decisions. They're both going to be pitching in the playoffs, but we'll see how much they contribute. As far as what the Indians did against playoff teams, 4-3 against the Orioles, 8-11 against the Tigers, 10-9 against the Royals. So, the Royals got it done in other places despite losing the season series to the Indians. Indians overall, 28-36 against the playoff teams this year. That includes going 0-3 against the Giants, and 2-1 against the Dodgers. Had some serious swoons. Namely, going out west, they dropped all six. A 3-game set at AT&T Park against the Giants, 3-game set down at Angels Park in Anaheim. So, I think that mediocre to slightly above average describes this team pretty well. Obviously a monster year from Corey Kluber, going 18-9. He might win the Cy Young. If not, he should finish second to Felix Hernandez. The two had basically identical seasons right up to and including just barely missing the playoffs. From a team perspective, anyway. But after that, it gets a little dicey for the Tribe. They expected big things out of Danny Salazar after he pitched well down the stretch. Didn't come out of spring training very well. Ends up being demoted to the minors. Zach McAllister just lost everything that he had. Josh Tomlin had a really good performance in Seattle through a one-hitter. But it was just glimpses of brilliance. They brought him out of the bullpen, and it was nowhere near what they needed him to be. The Indians dropped a couple of extra inning contests with Tomlin on the mound, but the bullpen in general was kind of disappointing. Zipchinski and Cody Allen were decent, but nothing special. Brian Shaw was hit and miss. Yeah, God, you lose track. You lose track of some of these guys because they didn't make it. Obviously, John Axford's gone. Josh Outman's gone. So disappointing year from the Indians bullpen. Disappointing year at the plate, but really disappointing year in the field. One of the defensive liabilities that we thought we'd have coming in would have been Carlos Santana over at third base. Manned the position well, but as it turned out, he didn't need to play over there because Lonnie Chisenhall showed that he had enough to get into the lineup. Nick Swisher goes down early, and this is a guy. They signed him as a free agent in 2011. He's brought in to be a team leader, but frankly, we haven't seen it. We haven't seen it with the production. He's a great cheerleader, and he seems great in the community. Him and his wife Joanna Garcia, but again, quite frankly, Nick Swisher just not putting up the numbers. 200 batting average, which was right around where he was last year before he saved himself a little bit in September. Never got a chance to bail himself out this season, so that was a disappointing position. Jason Kipnis had a really down year. Was lingered a little bit with injuries. Over on the other side of the bag there, Asdrubal Cabrera, just really disappointing player all around. I think that when he got traded to the Nationals for Zach Walter, I think that a lot of Indians fans were more so relieved that he wasn't on the team, more so than disappointed that we traded yet another player for a prospect. But Zach Walters came in. Batting average wasn't great, but timely home runs were big. Switch hitter, able to hit the ball from both sides of the plate. The guy ended up having 15 hits, and I think seven of them were long balls. So a little bit of pop in the lineup added with him. And, Masterson goes to St. Louis for their number 6 prospect. Cardinals are a good organization, so number 6 prospect in the Cardinals organization is probably going to come in a little higher. Went straight from Double-A with the St. Louis organization over to Triple-A Columbus with the Indians. So probably get a better glimpse of him in spring training next year. Maybe he makes the opening day roster. Tough to tell. A lot of fill-ins on the final roster. David Murphy missed a lot of time in the outfield. Michael Bourne, when he comes around well, but doesn't steal bases very well. So, first to home, first to third, great speed. Great speed on the bases. Man center field pretty well, but I can't really single anyone out as having a good glove on that Tribe defense, and that was something that they prided themselves in. A year and a half ago when they were picking up Drew Stubbs, who's gone for Josh Outman, who's also gone. You got Michael Bourne out there, but he's not getting on base and he's not stealing enough bases to get through for you. On the flip side of that, Yan Gomes. Really, really nice surprise defensively as far as throwing out runners, but when he misses, he's been bad. He's another one that's really up there in errors on the defensive side of things. John Axford, I think that we kind of knew that it wasn't going to work out going in. He's just brought in to kind of keep the pressure off of Cody Allen. But this bullpen as a whole, this team as a whole was in blowout games, which Baseball Reference defines as 5 runs or greater. They're great, 24 and 18. But in 1-run games, 25 and 21. So they were good kind of across the board. Extra inning games, 13 and 8. They didn't play very well away from Progressive Field. They didn't play particularly well in the. In April, they got out, they were 10 and 17 in the month of April. There was a win on March 31st. So call that 11 and 17 out of the gate. And, teams like Detroit are going to get away from you. I think that, Kansas City and Detroit both let the Indians get kind of close, let us flirt with some hope at the end of the season. But Just looking at the teams they played, they didn't really blow anybody away. They were 17-2 against Chicago in 2013, 10-9 this year. Kansas City 10-9, Minnesota 11-8. So they weren't really they didn't really blow anybody out of the water. They swept the Rockies in Colorado, 5-2 against Boston, who was a fourth place team. 4-2 against Tampa Bay, who was a bad team. Texas was probably one of the worst teams in baseball, 6-1 against them. Against the Arizona Diamondbacks, they were 2-2. In a home and home series, a short home and home series, you got to sweep one of those series against a bad team like the Diamondbacks. So, just not getting it done. And then, for the second time in a row, they went out there in 2011, but for the second time in a row, they were swept in San Francisco. Didn't play very well on the West Coast at all. Took 2 or 3 from Oakland to begin the season, but Oakland got theirs. They came in and swept the Indians at Progressive Field. So, this is just a team you look at and you're just like, nah. They didn't do anything particularly poorly, save maybe their defense. They didn't do anything particularly well, save their starting pitching, and only on occasion. Obviously Kluber was great. Carrasco showed glimpses. Bauer showed glimpses. Salazar looks like he might be back, but I'm not sold on TJ House. I'm certainly not sold on Zach McAllister or Josh Tomlin. So they've got some bottom of the rotation questions to answer. Can Trevor Bauer finally put it together for a full season? It took him until I think this August to win a game on the road. So he's certainly got his struggles. I've got confidence in Mickey Callaway to work them out, but I just wonder where the bat is going to be in this lineup. Carlos Santana, not a great batting average, but a pretty good season. Michael Brantley, so you got Brantley and Bourne in left and center. Probably going to bring Murphy back in right. So I'm looking around. I'm trying to figure out where this team's going to improve in 2015. This was a team again. I thought it had the capability to make it to the playoffs and perhaps even win the World Series when the season started. And it just never looked that way. Even the games they won in Oakland, even the games they won early in the season, they seem to squeak out. They seem to have I don't want to call it that Jacobs Field magic because it really didn't apply this year, but they found ways to win certain games. But I think that they played. They ended up playing, or their record ended up being better than they played. They gave away way too many runs just with the glove. Way too many games that they couldn't close out at the end of the game. And Cody Allen's a young guy. He wasn't the full-time closer. Maybe maybe building that mentality up in spring training next year will help him out. But it's tough to have a positive 2015 outlook other than great starting pitching. I mean, we see that great starting pitching isn't everything. It's namely in Detroit. So you got to have the bats, which the Indians beyond Santana and Brantley, where's it going to come from? Are we going to wait on Zach Walters? Or Francisco Lindor is probably going to be up. One thing I will say is that Jose Ramirez played pretty well, not great, but pretty well after the Cabrera trade. Didn't force Chris Antonetti's hand to make the call to Francisco Lindor and start his service time too soon. We might see Francisco Lindor at shortstop on opening day. The best prospect in the system by far, but. I'm looking forward to spring training to hopefully change my mind. I had the glass definitely half full going into the year. Come out of it quite half empty, though. It's I have a pessimistic approach to the 2015 season. I think that Corey Kluber is going to take earn the ball on opening day, but Francona will probably make him earn it with a start or two in spring training. The bullpen, oh man, the bullpen's got to get patched up. Got to figure out the right-handed bat. Got to figure out left-handed pitching. This has been going on for way too long in Cleveland, and got to figure out if Terry Francona is really in this to win it, or if this is just his swan song after being successful in Boston. If you take away the fact that he's Terry Francona, I think that there's a lot of aspects to this 2013 season that were quite disappointing. Same for the front office, not making any major deal at the deadline when. In reality, they were in it the last week of the season, so they could have played some good August and September baseball and been right there. But in the end, it was all for naught. So let's move on from the Indians, though. I want to recognize a couple players that called it quits. First of all, Paul Konerko, an Indian killer for years. Probably doesn't have Hall of Fame numbers, to be perfectly honest, but Certainly a player that's going to be missed in Chicago. Last piece from that 2005 World Championship team. So I'm sure White Sox fans hated to see him go, but he was all that remained, and he's gone now. So they're going to remember him on the south side of Chicago. And then if you weren't living under a rock, that Derek Jeter called it quits after 20 years, 5 World Championships. I think that he played a total of 4 or 5 games where the Yankees weren't, didn't at least have a puncher's chance at the playoffs. So great run for the Yankees, great run for Derek Jeter. I've seen him put down a lot this week. I've seen him raised up a lot this week, and I'm going to land somewhere in the middle. Probably not even the best shortstop that I'd seen. Definitely not the best Yankee that I'd seen in my lifetime. But still, a special player. You're kind of born on third base. You don't have to hit a triple when you get drafted by the Yankees. But 20 years with the same team, playing the same position, always an Indian killer, always came up with the big hits. Wasn't too proud to go the other way, and in the end, they're going to retire his number. And he's going to be among the greats with DiMaggio and Mantle and Gehrig and Ruth. But of all the modern Yankees, probably the most memorable. So toodaloo to Derek Jeter, but his team didn't make the playoffs. Neither did the Red Sox. A lot of big market teams were shut out this year. I'm looking around for what's going to happen in the playoffs. I think that this might be the year for Detroit. I look over to the National League. I think the Washington Nationals, maybe they didn't get to play the best level of competition in the National League East, but you got to like the Cardinals coming out of the Central. The Dodgers are in about year 3 of this mega team. Adding Yasiel Puig last year, so you gotta count them in. And the Giants pitching staff. I mean, throughout the season, I had my phone alerting me on the MLB at Bat app that some Giants pitcher was working on a no-hitter. And speaking of which, congratulations to Jordan Zimmerman for throwing a no-hitter on the last day of the season against the Marlins. He walked one, so he was just shy of a perfect game. And don't count out the Pirates, but it'd be interesting to see if we can get a team through to the World Series from the wild card round. I know that it came, St. Louis came close a couple years ago, ended up losing to the Giants in the LCS. But let's see how badly this wild card game, which I like, even though it hurt the Indians a year ago. Let's see if one of these wild card teams can push through, because they certainly did when they were on level footing with all the division champs. But right now, I think my prediction for the World Series is going to be Angels over Cardinals. I just like the way that the Angels are hitting. They're a better team without Josh Hamilton. They're surviving without Garrett Richards, but I just think that they played the best. They played the best baseball recently. You can make an argument for the Dodgers too, and the Cardinals, who weren't running away with this division all year. I mean, they had Milwaukee and Cincinnati to deal with, and then ultimately Pittsburgh at the end of the year. So, the Cardinals have been playing win or go home baseball for a while now. So I like them to come out of the National League. I like the Angels to come out of the American League, and I like the American. I like the American League team will have home field advantage for this World Series. I like the Angels to win it all. So. Plug time real quick. You can catch the Sunday morning show 11 to 1 Eastern on sportsbyline.com or find Sports Byline on the TuneIn radio app. I've been doing a podcast over on the More Than a Fan Network with Damian Bowman. Scheduled to do another one this Tuesday. So look for that at cfbroundtable.com and mtaf.tv. And, I'm covering Arizona State as they play big games. So you look for that work from me on the College Football Roundtable. That's all I've got for you this week. This was the Mistake by the Mike podcast, and that's all it is.